This is Apollo Control at 7 hours 3 minutes. The spacecraft will shortly be maneuvering to the proper attitude to take a series of ultraviolet photographs of Earth using the electric Hasselblad camera, which is mounted in the right side window of the command module. We expect that as the spacecraft maneuvers, we'll lose lock with the high-gain antenna, and the communications will probably momentarily drop out or become quite noisy until we reestablish solid lock-on. The crew by this time should have completed their what would amount to lunch. They're coming up now on the series of ultraviolet photographs of Earth. This is an experiment which gathers ultraviolet photos both of the Earth and later of the Moon for studies of planetary atmospheres. Also, prior to what will amount to their evening meal or dinner, the crew will be doing a series of mid-course navigation sightings, and also we'll be changing the lithium hydroxide canister, setting the spacecraft then up in a passive thermal control mode, a slow rotation of about 3 revolutions per hour to maintain the proper temperature equilibrium.
Okay, Houston, you have on.
And at the present time, we show Apollo 16, 33,696 nautical miles from Earth, spacecraft velocity 10,358 feet per second.
Houston, 16, over.
Go ahead, 16.
Okay, Pete, I think we figured out what all this white particles is coming off the limb. On a side of the limb that's between this Omni antenna and the ascent propulsion propellant tank, there's a surface that was gray that is now, for some reason, the thing is all stripped looking. It's a surface that's really almost perpendicular, parallel to the plus X of the limb, and it's all tattered and torn and shredded. Looks like shredded wheat is what it reminds me of. Over.
Roger, copy.
And that's the only surface we have that looks like that, and we continually get particles shredding off from that.
Roger, copy. Charlie, we're having a little trouble figuring out which surface you're talking about. Can you give us a little better description of what you were talking about there?
Okay, On the plus X side, on Kent's side, the surface right below the docking target that runs parallel to the plus X of the limb and right into the top of the apse propellant tank.
Okay, right below the docking target, and it runs right into the top of the apse propellant tank.
That's firm, and that axis is almost parallel to the plus X axis.
Roger.
And whatever that surface was is all shredded and, as I said, like shredded wheat, and it's continually spitting particles off.
Okay, in other words, you can see it deteriorating now, huh?
That's firm. It's spitting particles off about 5 or 10 a second.
Roger. Okay, 16, we got it, and we're going to take a look at it now.
Okay.
And 16, we've got a correction to the GNC checklist, page 9-4, whenever you're ready to copy.
Let's catch that after the UV photos.
Right, will do.
This is Apollo Control at 7 hours 22 minutes. At the present time, the LEM systems engineer is going through the handbook to try to pinpoint the precise location that Charlie Duke was describing on the lunar module. Charlie said that they appear to have found the surface that is giving off the particles that were reported earlier. He said they can see about 5 to 10 particles per second shredding off a surface where the coating appears to have degraded, as best we can tell from his description. He says the surface looks like shredded wheat, and it's spitting off particles. At the present time, we haven't pinpointed precisely what location he's talking about, although we expect the LEM systems engineer will come up with that location from the description shortly. And then the procedure will be to determine what, if any, effect the loss of that coating might have. Presumably the concern, if any exists, would be for thermal considerations. Most of those coatings are on there to maintain the proper temperature conditions within the vehicle.
Houston.
Go ahead.
Roger. On panel 382, the primary glycol evap inlet temp valve, we want to adjust it slowly to get that temp to evap out to about 45 degrees. And you'll have to go toward the...
You want us to go into manual and set the evaporator... You want to set the temperature to 45 with a manual while we have the water boiler going, is that correct?
That's affirmative. You can go ahead and set it, move it toward maximum. You'll have to go pretty slow with it.
Okay, can we stand by just a minute?
Affirmative.
Thanks. I got to open up that panel and all that stuff.
Roger. Houston, can you go manual on the high gain?
Roger.
Charlie, it was in react and it was drifting around.
Okay, it's in manual now.
Roger, got it.
This is Apollo Control at 7 hours 38 minutes. We appear to have pinned down on the diagrams a little more precisely where the thermal skins that Charlie Duke described, shredded and spitting off particles, are located. Perhaps the best way to describe this would be to ask you to visualize the lunar module as if you were looking at the ascent stage of the LEM, facing the porch, the front porch, or the part of the LEM that looks like a face, and visualize the docking target, which is on an upper surface, slightly behind and to the left of the commander's position. The panels extend downward from this docking target, would involve several square feet of area, of surface area, downward to the bulbous tank that is underneath thermal skins then that protrude from the right side of the lunar module. We have very little data on the lunar module at the present time. The only data that we're monitoring is the amount of power being transferred from the command module to the lunar module, so we have very little information to go on in assessing what the effect might be. As I mentioned previously, the primary purpose of these skins, which generally consist, although they vary from place to place on the LEM, generally consist of layers of coated mylar or kapton, which are thin plastic-like materials, the sole purpose of which is to maintain the proper temperature conditions for the equipment, tanks, and so on that are underneath. Among the equipment underneath this section of the lunar module is RCS System A, oxidizer, and helium tanks. We understand there's also a water tank in that area. We are investigating or discussing the possibility that a leaking tank might have something to do with shredding the material. I think the primary concern at this time is what is causing the material to shred. Among the things that have been discussed are turning the TV on, giving the people on the ground a look. The response that Flight Director Pete Frank got to that suggestion was that it probably wouldn't do us a great deal of good, although that one is still an open possibility. And the LEM systems engineer is continuing to evaluate the situation, and will be coming back with additional recommendations. At the present time, Apollo 16 is 37,181 nautical miles from Earth. Spacecraft velocity is down now to 9,826 feet per second.
Houston, is that close enough on that evap temp? Looks like I can't hit 45. I can hit 43 or about 46 or 7.
From your 16, that looks good enough. 16, Houston, on this panel that you were looking at that the particles are coming off of, that's not a hard piece of structure there. That's just a thermal protection covering a standoff that's over the top of the RCS-A system tanks. And all the RCS-A tanks are under there, and what we're concerned about is that one of those tanks may be leaking and affecting that thermal protection blanket on top.
Okay.
Okay, we're considering a possibility of taking a look at the LEM system.
I'm not sure. The picture that we're trying to paint here is like you had painted something, and then all the paint started to peel off. It's all stripping up like an old, like you painted an old barn and had the paint come off of it. And it's all standing out. You can see it kind of released from the surface. And I don't know if that fits your picture or not.
Roger, I think that's the way we understand it. Are you still getting those particles coming off pretty fast here now?
They're not coming off as fast as they were a while back, but maybe that's our sun angle has changed to make them look quite as obvious.
Roger.
That last description came from Ken Mattingly. Ken describing the appearance of that thermal skin as looking like an old barn in need of paint, where the paint is, or whatever the coating is lifting up and kind of peeling back. And our LEM systems engineer, who has done a bit more digging into the nature of the skins at that portion, at that point on the LEM, describes it as an aluminum skin, about 4 mils thick and painted. So that would go along with the crew's description of paint peeling. This, as we mentioned previously, the skins at various portions on the LEM differ. Typically they would be mylar type material, but there are also skins that are aluminum.
Hey, Don, we're ready to, looks like we ought to be deactivating the primary evaporator. Did you want us to keep it on for a while or something?
Stand by a minute. Negative, Ken, you can go ahead and shut her down.
Oh, ready? Okay, Don, we got the evaporator secured.
Roger, copy. 16 Houston, on that panel 382 and the manual control of the mixing valve, looks like we're going to have to play with that valve every time we change attitude, so you might just leave that panel open or close one or two of those fasteners so it'll be easy to get into.
Okay. Looks like that's going to be fun around the moon, doesn't it?
Raj. We're looking at that right now, Ken.
All right.
This is Apollo Control at 8 hours 5 minutes. Apollo 16 at the present time is maneuvering to the proper attitude for calibrating the optics system that will be used in a series of star sightings. These are taken routinely on the trans-Earth and trans-lunar legs of the flight. The information is fed into the onboard guidance system and is used to update the onboard system's knowledge of so-called state vector, the trajectory that the vehicle is currently on. This data is then compared with the ground figures. And as the spacecraft maneuvers into this attitude, we lose lock with a high-gain antenna and have a momentary dropout in communications. Again, to reiterate the description that we've gotten from the crew on what appears to be paint peeling from a portion of the lunar module thermal skins. About 45 minutes ago, or at about 7 hours and 17 minutes, Charlie Duke came on the circuit to describe the location of the lunar module from which a series of white particles that had been described earlier as drifting past the command module appeared to be emanating from. He said it was on the side of the lunar module between the Omni antenna and the one of the LEM tanks, and had the appearance of skin that was torn or shredded, with particles coming off at the rate of about 5 to 10 per second. The initial reaction here in the control center was that one of the mylar or Kapton skins, which are stretched over the lunar module surface for maintaining the thermal control, proper temperatures within the vehicle, had shredded, and it was these particles coming off. This is a very fragile material physically, and since the lunar module, of course, does not have to withstand aerodynamic forces, these surfaces can be very lightweight and consequently are quite fragile. The initial concern was for what had shredded the material. Later, Ken Mattingly gave us a further description, and also we coupled that with information from the LEM systems engineer here in the control center. Ken's description was that the material appeared to be paint peeling back from a hard surface. The LEM systems engineer verified that the skins at that point on the lunar module are very thin aluminum. He said they were 4 mils thick and are painted, which would indicate that the skin itself, the aluminum structure, is not damaged, but that the paint, which is also on there for thermal purposes, is apparently peeling back. At the present time, we're continuing to evaluate what effects that might have thermally on the equipment beneath the area. The panels, the thermal skins are over RCS System A, one of the 2 RCS systems tanks. The oxidizer tank, helium tank, and also a water tank was reported in that area. One of the things that has been discussed and is still under consideration is the possibility of having the crew enter the lunar module, power it up enough to give us a look at some of those systems and perhaps allow us to draw some further conclusions as to what might be happening. As we mentioned previously, the only measurements that we have on the lunar module at the present time are the power measurements. We're monitoring the amount of power that is being supplied from the command module to the lunar module.
16 Houston, go to high gain. The 16, go high gain. Houston, give us a high gain antenna.
This is Apollo Control at 8 hours 15 minutes. The LEM systems engineer has...
Roger, 16, you're loud and clear. Help me.
Roger, I see something coming off the lunar module now that I haven't been up here looking out the window. I just noticed it looks like it's coming out of a vent or something, and from looking at it through the window, it is beneath this sheet that's sort of threaded off, and it's right between that spiral antenna and above the big apse tank. But this is definitely coming out in a stream right now, looks like, and not very many particles, but they're being propelled away from the lunar module at some velocity.
Okay, let's get in there and take a look at it.
Roger, I think we're going to have to get into LEM and take a look at the RCS systems gauges to tell what's going on here. You notice any color or anything more descriptive about that stream?
Well, my opinion of the color is that it's a brownish material.
Roger.
And it has some of it has long flakes to it, and but some of it's just little particles.
Roger. Uh, 16, we'd like to have a look at the LEM CM Delta P before you start pressurizing it all the time.
Okay, do you want us to stop the P-23 and go in there right now, over?
That's affirmative, 16.
Okay. Do you want us to stay in this attitude, Pete?
And Pete, you might be thinking about what kind of, where you want us to enter the checklist.
All right, Roger, I understand. We'll get back to you on it in a minute, Troy.
Right, the activation checklist, I guess.
Right.
We're up to 6/10 on the LEM CM∆P, which is what it was due to our cap pressure difference. So I don't think it's leaked any.
All right, Roger, we copied. And Charlie, we want to start on page 2-1 in the activation checklist.
Okay.
Pete, how about if I go to wider dip band?
We want to, first of all, Ken, we want to roll to 91 degrees, and that'll bore sight the aft omni toward the earth, and also we want the waste storage vent valve closed.
Okay, now, take it a little slower here. You want to do a maneuver to a roll of 90, is that firm?
A roll of 91.
Okay, you want the other attitudes to be the same as I have now?
That's affirmative.
That's affirmative 60.
Okay, I have 9100, and we'll use the present pitch, our present yaw, and you get the waste vent closed.
Roger, with the waste storage vent valve closed.
We've done that. Okay, we're starting our maneuver now.
This is Apollo Control at 8 hours 20 minutes, and the import of that last series of exchanges with the crew is that we are instructing them to enter the lunar module. We'll power it up sufficiently to look at some of the systems and try to determine from the data what, if anything, out of the ordinary is happening. The additional description that we got a minute or so ago was from John Young. John described the particles coming off as on further evaluation to have the appearance of some sort of a vent. He said the material appeared to have a brownish color and appeared to be propelled away from the lunar module with some force. He said it was coming out in a stream, sometimes particles and sometimes as longer streams. And the main thing that we'll be looking for when the LEM is powered up is the propellant pressures and temperatures, particularly in that area of the lunar module.
Okay, Houston, we're opening the LEM pressurization valve now.
Roger.
How's it look?
And it appears at this point that the crew is opening the LEM hatch. Total time probably would be around 15 minutes from the time they started the procedures of getting into the LEM until they're in and began turning on some of the switches so that we can look at those lunar module systems.
Ken, we're also thinking about trying to get some TV looks at that venting condition if it doesn't interfere with the activation.
Okay, I tell you what, we've stowed the camera afterwards. Wait till they get in the LEM and then I'll go down and get that thing out. I can do that while they're going in there.
Roger, understand.
Both Charlie Duke and John Young will be entering the lunar module. They're in the process of doing that right now. And at the present time, Apollo 16 is 41,141 nautical miles from Earth, traveling at a speed of 9,298 feet per second. We have asked Ken Mattingly to get out the TV camera, and we expect that once Duke and Young are in the lunar module, cleared out of the way so that he can get to the area where it's stowed, that he will get it out, and we would expect to get a TV picture, hopefully showing the area of the lunar module where the particles are coming from. And shortly after that, we should also get some data from the lunar module, which is, of course, the thing of greatest interest to the controllers here in Mission Control. And particularly, they are interested in looking at the propellant pressures and temperatures of RCS System A, which is in the vicinity of the lunar module where we're seeing the materials, the particles emanating.
16, can you zero the optics? All you have to do is hit the switch. It's within 10 degrees.
Okay, Houston, how far along in this activation you like us to go?
Stand by a minute, Charlie.
Step 7, page 2-3. 2-3, step 7.
Go to page 2-3, step 7, Charlie.
Okay, we start on 2-1, right?
That's affirmative.
This is Apollo Control at 8 hours 33 minutes, and that last transmission from Charlie Duke indicates to us that Duke and Young are in the lunar module, going through the activation checklist at the present time, getting the LEM partially powered up so that we can get a look at some of the critical systems and the pertinent systems in this case, in an attempt to determine what, if anything, out of the ordinary is happening. And as we mentioned previously, we do expect to get some television from the command module. Ken Mattingly advised us that he would be getting the camera unstowed and in operation as soon as possible.
Okay, Don, they're on their way into the LEM now, and Charlie's in there, John's joining them, and I'll work on getting the TV camera out.
Okay.
Okay, Houston, we're going on to LEM power right now.
Roger.
Okay, we've gone to reset and off.
Roger, 16.
That time was 8:36:34.
Roger. And Ken, when you get the camera set up, ready to operate, we'll go to medium beam width on the high gain antenna.
Okay, it's going to be a few minutes.
Roger, understand.
Okay, Houston, you should have the data now according to our checklist.
Roger.
We're down through step 7 on page 2-3.
Roger.
We have the data from the lunar module now. We're looking at it, and we'll get an evaluation.
RCS, quad A and B meter, take a look at them.
Stand by 1. Uh, 16, I guess we don't need the heaters. We're looking at all the data now.
Okay, we didn't say heater, we said meter.
Roger, stand by.
I guess we can take your word for it, that's for sure.
Right. We're looking at all the data now, I think.
Okay, fine. Our system A RCS meter, which is not powered, is at 92% quantity, and B is a little over 100.
Roger.
Okay, and I'm ready ready to give you a TV from the outside.
Roger, can't understand.
Our LEM systems engineers report from the data we've seen so far that everything looks good, looks normal, no evidence of any propellant leaks or pressurization leaks. And we're standing by now for television from the command module.
"16, based on what we're looking at, the system A pressures look okay. We don't see any problem with the tanks."
Okay, but it sure is something strange coming out of that. I never saw anything like that on LEM 4. I mean, I'm not normally a rabble rouser. It just ain't something funny going on there.
Would you like to have the TV with a wide beam outside?
Yeah, Ken, I guess we haven't got a picture yet here.
No, I was waiting for you. You said something about some high gain things you wanted to do, and I hadn't done any of those yet.
Oh, we wanted to go to medium beam width on a high gain, and we're ready for the pictures anytime.
Well, if it looks okay to you, Houston, you want us to fire this thing down now?
Stand by just a minute. We're going to take one last long look here, but everything looks okay so far.
That's great.
Uh, 16 on panel 16 in the LEM under the PQGS display breaker. Let's push that one in and we'll take a look at quantities.
Okay, Don, if you have a picture now, I'm not going to zoom in until you got a good picture.
Okay, that was in, and the quantities went to 100 each.
Looks like the TV's in standby, Ken.
Does that help?
Right.
And we're getting a black and white picture.
Quantities look good, 16.
That's firm. They're both 100.
Okay, 16, we're ready to back out.
Pull that breaker. Fire down. We'll pull the breaker first and back down. Thank you.
Roger.
Hey, Don, can you see any picture yet?
Negative, Ken.
At the present time, we're looking at the picture in black and white, waiting for the color converter to lock up.
Okay, I'm in transmit. Got a good monitor this time. I've got FM transmitter. I got the S-band aux to TV.
Okay, Ken, I think the TV's okay. I think the problem is here. It's going to take us about another minute, I guess.
Okay, I'll stand by, because I'm going to have to show you the part we're looking at.
Roger.
Okay, Ken, there we're getting a picture.
Okay, can you see the docking target, and do you have a grid? I've got a grid on my monitor that you should be able to correlate with. Do you have that available? If you don't, I'll just try to talk you towards the frame.
Stand by just a minute. Ken, I guess we don't have the grid right now.
Okay, right now the center of my picture is just about on the center of the docking target. Does that look like your picture? Okay, I'm going to move the camera up, and there's a flat surface which is now just about on the center of my picture, and it's pointing away from me. This is the one we can see it peeling off of.
Roger.
I'm going to try to zoom in on it, and I'll see the best monitor picture I can get, and you may have to talk me in on some of the other.
Okay.
Houston, our activation checklist says leave the cabin repress breaker closed, but we found it open. How you want to play that one?
Stand by a minute, Jeff. Okay, John, we want that one open on the way out.
Open on the way out, Raj.
That's real good, Ken. Hold it right there.
Okay, hang on. I'm stuck here. I'll get back with you.
Okay. You had a real good picture right there of where you were.
Okay.
Yeah, Ken, we're seeing the stuff coming off of there now. Ken, while we're looking at it, we're trying to get a hack on whether or not there are any jets firing across that surface that would correlate with those particles coming off.
Yes, sir, there are. My A thruster seems to bang on it quite a bit. And we put the LEM power back to CSM at 8:52, I'd say about 15 seconds ago.
Roger, copy.
Don, are you guys through with this picture, or do you need something else?
Hang on just a minute, kid. Ken, we see occasional particles come off, but we're not seeing a stream. Do you see any streaming like John was talking about earlier?
No, sir. Maybe, well, you know, we're in an entirely different sun angle now, and it's not clear to me that we don't see different things. Maybe John can take this thing and show you where it was coming from, because I didn't see it.
Roger.
Yeah, I'd be glad to, be only too happy to point it out.
Right.
No, it stopped. When we maneuvered it out of the sun, it stopped peeling off.
Roger.
Okay, Pete, take that back. You can see a little of it as the particles stream off when they get out into the sun. You can see them, and they look like they have the same trajectory as the other ones, but it's very few right now.
Roger. Kind of going out the top center, slightly right center of the picture?
Yeah, that's about right, yeah.
Right.
Okay, I was off comm over there. How about bringing the old LMP up to speed?
Ken, can we roll to get this area back in the sunlight where we could have a better look at it?
Okay, Pete, we're just about ready to maneuver. We are maneuvering.
Okay, I guess we want to go back to where you came and go back to that attitude where you had good sunlight on it.
Okay, that's the P23 attitude.
Roger.
Okay, and every so often I see a particle come out from that region at some accelerated velocity, like it's leaving the spacecraft.
Roger.
Okay, Pete, for my edification, we're only pad the blanket pressures and the helium tanks looking okay on the RCS?
Affirmative, they were, Charlie.
This is Apollo Control. The picture we're getting right now is the interior of the command module. All three crewmen back in the command module now. And after the look that we got at the lunar module on the telemetry data, everything appeared to be normal. We've had a group of very interested engineers and project management people here in the control center looking at the television picture and could see very clearly the panel, which had the shredded appearance, what Charlie Duke described earlier as appearing like shredded wheat.
Lim, we didn't show any current drain when you went in there.
Yes, sir. Just like the refrigerator, it came right on with the hatch about quarter of the way open, and when I went to all, we had all of the floodlights. can see a lot better over there when you take your shades off.
Roger.
And Pete, every time the one of the command module, service module RCS plus X jets fires towards that one over the hatch here, it really blows that stuff off.
Roger, copy.
Okay, Houston, as in this moment, that area is completely free of particles. It wouldn't do you any good to show you any TV of it because it's not doing anything.
Roger, copy. Okay, John, I guess that's about all the data we're going to get. We're going to have to think that over a while, so we'll go ahead and stow the TV camera and get back to the flight plan.
Yes, sir. It's certainly an unusual thing, and furthermore, it's very strange how this upper surface here is flaked off behind the docking target. Which I guess you can't see that on the TV. I couldn't see it on the monitor. Can you see it on the TV?
We got a pretty good look at the portion of it. Looks like a lot of, like Charlie said, freighted wood.
Yeah, it looks like about a half an inch or an inch of grass growing out of the upper surface there.
Yeah, we got a pretty good look at that.
Okay.
I don't think we know what it means yet, but we did get a good look at it.
Roger.
Probably might say that looks bad.
Right. Did you have a TV picture in the cockpit there?
Affirmative, real briefly there.
That's what I was afraid of.
Okay, 16, we'd like to get the waste storage vent valve open again now.
And Pete, the lunar module looks very clean. There was very few particles in it, and that's just about it. Over.
All right, you understand. And Charlie, we'd like to go in the flight plan here at 12:15 and delete closing the waste storage vent valve and move that to 13:15.
Okay, we're moving it to 13:15.
Ready?
This is Apollo Control at 9 hours, 8 minutes. Again, to recap the situation, after having the crew get in, power up the lunar module, and taking a look at the external area where the material on the skin was shredding, particles were coming out, we can find nothing obviously wrong. And it's obviously reassuring to have all of the data on the propellant tanks and the pressures and quantities looking normal. At the present time, the thing that we're looking into is the possibility of an unusually large number of jet firings at some point from the command module reaction control system thrusters that might have perhaps degraded or burned the surface or chemically caused it to peel up the way it appeared to be in the television picture. But I would say at this point that there is somewhat of a relaxed, or at least not overly tense mood in the control center, and certainly it was reassuring to see all of the data looking good when we did power up the lunar module. Apollo 16 at the present time is 44,921 nautical miles from Earth, and the spacecraft velocity continuing to drop off slowly down now to 8,851 feet per second. And Charlie Duke reported also that the lunar module looked extremely clean when they got inside. No particles floating around. There have been times in the past where the lunar module has had particles on one occasion from some docking tunnel insulation that had gotten in there. And also have been occasions where when the LEM was depressurized, glass covers on some of the instruments had broken, but apparently no problems of that nature. As Duke reported, the LEM looked very clean. At the point the crew will pick up their flight plan, they'll be about 1 hour, perhaps a little bit more behind where they would have been had this problem not cropped up. This is, however, a relatively slack period in the flight plan. We would expect them to be able to make up the time without a great deal of difficulty. They're scheduled to be taking some navigation sightings through the command module optics system. These will be used to update the onboard guidance system's knowledge of its position and trajectory. This is Apollo control. As a point of interest, that entire exercise in the lunar module took about 1 hour. We reached the conclusion here in the control center that we were going to ask the crew to enter the LEM at about 8 hours 13 minutes ground elapsed time. A couple of minutes after that, John Young came up with a further report of what appeared to be particles venting from the LEM, which reinforced and further confirmed the decision to go into the lunar module. The crew, Young and Duke, to our best estimate, were in the LEM by 8 hours 30 minutes ground elapsed time, and spent about 16 minutes in the lunar module, during which time we got a good long look at all of the critical systems and could find nothing out of the ordinary. And again, to repeat Charlie Duke's description, the LEM looked extremely clean. That, I think, evaluation would apply equally as well to what we saw on the ground and what the crew saw on board.
Correction 1, and we're looking at about 12 feet per second on mid-course correction 2.
Well, that's great.
And Capcom Don Peterson has just advised the crew that mid-course correction number 1 will not be required. That opportunity for the mid-course is scheduled at 11 hours 39 minutes. And by the time we get around to the opportunity at mid-course correction number 2, the amount of velocity change it appears would be required is somewhere on the order of 12 feet per second. By dropping mid-course correction 1, of course, that will give the crew a bit of help in making up the time that was lost in going into the lunar module. And we would expect that they would have most of that time made up by the time they're ready to begin their rest period. Apollo 16 at this time is 45,800 17 nautical miles from Earth and traveling at a speed of 8,750 feet per second.
Don, do you anticipate any significant change in the Burp 49 maneuver angles due to our slip in time?
Negative, none at all, Ken.